I'll never forget the moment I saw my best friend's Instagram post. She was smiling ear to ear, announcing that she just got a surprise $7,000 work bonus. And you know what my first emotion was? It wasn't happiness. It wasn't excitement for her. It was pure burning jealousy. That ugly feeling in my stomach. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just having a bad day. I was trapped in something psychologists call a victim mindset, and it was destroying my life from the inside out. But here's the thing, once I recognized it, I was able to completely flip the script. I went from being my own worst enemy to becoming my greatest champion. And in the next 10 minutes, I'm gonna show you exactly how I did it, using real psychology, real strategies, and real stories, including what Kobe Bryant did after one of the most embarrassing moments of his career. So if you've ever felt like nothing goes your way, like everyone else is winning except you, or like you're stuck watching life happen to other people, stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're gonna have a roadmap to rewrite your entire story. Let's get into it.
So what exactly is a victim mindset? And more importantly, how do you know if you have one? Here's the brutal truth. It's not about one bad day or one moment of jealousy. It's a loop, a system, and it runs on 4 specific pillars that I was unconsciously reinforcing every single day. Let me break them down for you. The first pillar is what I call the why me trap. And here's the thing, I asked why all the time, but I wasn't asking it to find solutions. I was asking it to prove I was powerless. My internal monologue sounded like this. Why does everything in my life have to be so hard? Why don't people understand me? Why does she always get the good stuff and I don't? Dr. Tracey Marks, a psychiatrist who specializes in mental health, calls this out perfectly. She says these aren't real questions. They're complaints disguised as questions. You're not looking for answers, you're looking for validation that you're stuck. And the more you ask why me, the more your brain finds evidence to support it. It's like confirmation bias on steroids. But here's what I didn't realize at the time. This was just a surface level. The second pillar went even deeper, and it was slowly eating away at my mental health every single night. Dr. Marks uses this crazy metaphor that stuck with me. She says rumination is like a cow chewing cud for hours. You're not digesting anything new, you're just chewing the same thing over and over and over. And that was me. Every night before bed, I'd replay every embarrassing moment, every argument, every failure. I had this negative script running on a loop. I never seemed to get what I want. Why bother trying? I always mess it up. It wasn't reflection. It wasn't learning. It was mental self-torture disguised as thinking. And here's the kicker. The more you ruminate, the deeper you carve that mental groove. You're literally training your brain to expect failure. Quick question. Have you ever laid in bed replaying a conversation from 3 years ago, wishing you'd said something different? Yeah, that's rumination. And it's pillar number 2. But it gets worse, because pillar 3 is where I completely gave up control. Dr. Karen Gap explains learned helplessness as a state where you genuinely believe you're powerless. You see yourself as at the mercy of others or life in general. Here's how this showed up in my life. I stopped applying for jobs I wanted because they never picked me anyway. I stopped asking for help because no one really cares. I stopped trying in relationships because I always get hurt. I had stopped trying to overcome challenges because deep down, I truly believed I couldn't. And you know what's the easiest escape route when you believe you're helpless? Blame. Blame your parents, blame your boss, blame the economy, blame your ex, blame the algorithm. Because if it's everyone else's fault, you don't have to take responsibility. And if you don't take responsibility, you don't have to try. But here's the brutal truth. When you give away all the blame, you also give away all your power. Now, all 3 of these pillars were bad, but pillar 4 was the foundation holding the entire prison together. And when I finally saw it, everything made sense. At the core of everything, the complaining, the ruminating, the helplessness, was one simple, painful belief. I didn't think I deserved good things. Dr. Marks puts it perfectly. She says people with a victim mindset are often their own worst critic. They see themselves as damaged goods. I looked at successful people and thought, well, they're just different. They're smarter, luckier, more talented. I looked at myself and saw someone fundamentally broken, someone who didn't deserve a better story. And when you believe that about yourself, everything else falls into place. The complaining makes sense. The rumination makes sense. The giving up makes sense. Because why would you fight for a life you don't think you deserve? But here's the thing. I was living in this mental prison for years, and I didn't even know the walls were there until one Tuesday afternoon when everything shattered. And what happened next forced me to make a choice I'd been avoiding my entire life. So there I was, junior year in college, sitting in my marketing class. We had this huge presentation coming up, worth 30% of our final grade. The assignment was clear. Conduct 5 customer interviews, analyze the data, present your finding. I did none of that. Well, technically I did 2 interviews the night before, threw together some slides at 2 a.m. and walked into class hoping I could just wing it. I couldn't. My professor didn't sugarcoat it. He gave me a failing grade right there in his office. And you know what I did? I went into full victim mode. I started over-explaining everything. Well, you see, 3 weeks ago, I had this thing happen, and then my group partner didn't respond, and the instructions weren't totally clear. And I was building a case to prove I did nothing wrong, that I was the victim of circumstances. Later that day, I'm venting to one of my closest friends. I'm going through the whole story again, looking for validation, looking for him to tell me, yeah, man, that professor's unfair. And instead, he stops me mid-sentence and he says, dude, I hear you, but it sounds like you're playing the victim here. It sounds like you're trying to prove everyone else is wrong instead of looking at what you could have done differently. I wanted to get angry. I wanted to defend myself again. My brain was screaming, he doesn't get it, but I couldn't because somewhere deep down, past all the defense mechanisms and excuses, he was right. That conversation was the mirror I'd been avoiding my entire life. And once you see yourself clearly, you can't unsee it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his words. And for the first time in years, I asked myself a different kind of question. Not why does this always happen to me, but what if this is all my fault? What if I'm the common denominator in all my problems? And that's when I found the work of sports psychologist Bill Beswick. And he asked me 3 questions that completely changed my life. Beswick says that every single morning, champions make a choice. They decide, am I gonna be a fighter today? Or am I going to be a victim? For years, I had unconsciously chosen victim. Now I had to consciously choose fighter. And to do that, I had to answer 3 brutal questions with complete honesty. Question number 1, what do you want? Seems simple, right? But when I really sat with this question, I realized something terrifying. I had no idea. I had spent so much time focused on what was wrong, what I didn't have, who had wronged me, that I had zero clarity on what I actually wanted to build. I could tell you everything I hated about my life, but I couldn't tell you what I wanted instead. And you can't hit a target you can't see. Question number 2, how badly do you want it? This one hurt even more because I claimed I wanted success. I claimed I wanted a better life. I talk about my dreams all the time, but Beswick doesn't care about what you say. He cares about what you do. And my actions told a different story. I procrastinated. I quit when things get hard. I took shortcuts. I blamed others. Beswick says champions are willing to pay the price. They're willing to do the hard work, make the sacrifices, put in the hours. I wasn't. I wanted the reward without the struggle. I wanted the highlight reel without the practice. And question number 3 was the knockout punch. Beswick says the champions suffer every day, not because they're masochists, but because they embrace the grind. They embrace the early mornings, the rejections, the failures, the discomfort. I, on the other hand, had been running from discomfort my entire life. The moment something felt hard, I'd quit and blame external factors. Staring at my own pathetic answers to these 3 questions, something clicked. I made a decision that night. A real one, not a I should probably change wish. A decision. I was going to adopt a fighter mentality. And Beswick gave me the mantra that I still use today. There are 1,000 excuses, but not a single good reason to fail. No more excuses, only action. But here's the thing about changing your mindset. You can't just flip a switch and suddenly be a different person. Your brain doesn't work like that. So I had to be strategic. I had to use actual psychology to retrain my brain to see the world differently. And the first strategy was so simple, it almost felt too easy, but it worked. And it's probably the most important habit I'm about to share with you. Okay, So I had made the decision to change. But decisions without systems are just wishes. I needed a plan. I needed daily habits that would physically rewire my brain from victim mode to winner mode. And here's what most people get wrong about mindset shifts. They think it's about motivation. It's not. Motivation fades. What you need is a system of small strategic habits that retrain your brain to see the world differently. So let me walk you through the 4 habits that changed everything for me. And I'm gonna give you the exact steps so you can start tonight. Habit number 1. Build confidence with small wins. Dr. Tracey Marks says the key to breaking a victim mindset is to build confidence by creating small, achievable goals. And here's why this works. Your brain believes evidence, not affirmations. You can say, I'm a winner in the mirror 1,000 times, but if you have 0 proof, your brain won't buy it. So I started ridiculously small. I'm talking embarrassingly small. My first goal was read 1 chapter of a textbook. That's it. Not the whole book, 1 chapter. Second goal, go for a 15-minute run without stopping. Third, clean and organize my entire desk. Now, here's the key part that most people skip. After each win, I would stop and reflect on it. I'd sit there and let that feeling of accomplishment sink in. Because that feeling, that tiny dopamine hit of, I said I'd do it and I did it, that's what retrains your brain. You're gathering data that proves your old story wrong. Small wins aren't about the task itself. They're about building a new identity, the identity of someone who follows through. But small wins alone weren't enough, because the real test came when I inevitably failed at something. And what I learned from one of the greatest basketball players of all time completely changed how I handle failure. Habit number 2, reframe failure like Kobe Bryant. May 1997, Western Conference semifinals. Kobe Bryant, 18 years old, takes 4 critical shots in the final minutes. He airballs all 4 of them. Not missed, airballs, the most embarrassing miss in basketball. His team loses. Reporters swarm him. The entire world is watching this kid choke on the biggest stage. And you know what Kobe did? He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame his teammates. He didn't avoid the media. He went straight to the gym and asked himself one question. Why did this happen? Not, why me? Not, this is unfair. Just, why? And he found a concrete answer. His legs didn't have the strength for a long NBA season. So he completely redesigned his training program. The next season, he became one of the best clutch performers in NBA history. A few weeks into my journey, I got a C- on an essay. The old me would have blamed the professor, said the grading was unfair, complained to my friends. The new me asked, why did this happen? I read the professor's feedback. Weak thesis, lack of evidence, unclear structure. That wasn't a judgment of my worth. That was a roadmap for improvement. Failure isn't a verdict. It's education disguised as feedback. But here's the thing. You can have the right mindset. You can learn from failure and still get dragged back down if you're surrounded by the wrong people. Which brings me to habit 3, curate your environment. There's a concept from the Savouring Success podcast that hit me hard. You are the result of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Think about that. The 5 people you text the most, hang out the most, listen to the most. Are they fighters or victims? I had to take a hard look at my circle. And honestly, some of my closest friends were professional complainers. Every conversation was about what's wrong, who wronged them, why life is unfair. And I'm not saying cut people off cold, but Dr. Tracey Marks is clear. You need to limit contact with people who are consistently critical or negative. At the same time, I made a proactive move. I started seeking out people who were doing things I wanted to do. I had a friend training for a marathon. I asked if I could join her on some runs. 6 months later, I ran my first 10K. The old me would have laughed at that idea. I'm not a runner, but I became one because I put myself in an environment where running was normal. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Design it intentionally. Now, these 3 habits were game changers, but there was one practice, super simple, takes 2 minutes, that consistently pulled me back whenever I felt myself slipping. Habit number 4. The gratitude intervention. I know. Gratitude sounds cliche. It sounds like toxic positivity Instagram caption nonsense. But hear me out, because this isn't about pretending everything's perfect. It's a psychological intervention. Dr. Tracey Marks says that when you feel yourself slipping back into feeling sorry for yourself, you need a pattern interrupt. And the most effective one is a physical gratitude list. Whenever I caught myself in a victim spiral,
complaining, ruminating, blaming. I'd grab a piece of paper and write down everything I was grateful for. I have a bed to sleep in. I have a friend who told me the truth. I have a body that can move. I have access to education. Some days, the list was long. Some days, I had to really dig for things. But reading that list back, it physically changed my perspective. It's not about denying your problems. It's about rebalancing your focus. When you're in victim mode, you only see what's missing. Gratitude forces you to see what's there. You're literally redirecting your brain's spotlight from scarcity to abundance. Oh, and one more thing Dr. Tracey Marks recommends that I had to add. Give to others. Volunteer. Help a friend move. Tutor someone. Buy someone coffee. When you meet someone else's needs, you rise above victim mode by becoming someone's hero. I started volunteering one Saturday a month at a food bank. Impossible to feel powerless when you're actively helping someone eat. So those are the 4 habits. Small wins, reframe failure, curate your environment, practice gratitude, and giving. But I need to be real with you about something, because if I don't say this, you might think this story has a perfect ending. It doesn't. This isn't a I fixed my mindset in 30 days story. The truth is messier than that, and you need to know what this actually looks like long term. Here's what I need you to understand. This transformation didn't happen overnight, and it's not finished. Dr. Tracey Marks says it perfectly. Overcoming a victim mindset is a daily, ongoing process that requires a lot of effort. There are still days when I catch myself complaining, days when I want to blame someone else, days when that old victim voice whispers, "See, nothing ever works out for you." But here's the difference now. I recognize it. I catch it, and I have tools to redirect it. The old me would spiral for days. The new me spirals for maybe an hour before I pull out my gratitude list, go for a run, or text a friend who reminds me who I'm becoming. You don't eliminate the victim mindset. You just get better at managing it. The skiing metaphor. The Savouring Success podcast uses this metaphor that stuck with me. When you ski through a forest, if you focus on the trees, you will hit a tree every single time. But if you focus on the path between the trees, you'll find your way through. Victim mindset, that's staring at the trees. All the obstacles, all the problems, all the reasons why you can't. Fighter mindset, that's focusing on the path, the opportunities, the solutions, the next right step. Same forest, different focus, completely different outcome. The identity shift. Bill Beswick says that when you adopt a fighter mentality, you start writing your own life story every day in a more positive, productive way. I used to be the victim of my story, the supporting character, the one things happen to. Now, I'm the author. I decide what chapter I'm in. I decide how the character responds. I decide what the story means. And so can you. So here's what I want you to do tonight. Not tomorrow, tonight. Pick one of those 4 habits. Just one. Write down 3 small wins you're going to accomplish this week. Or write a gratitude list right now, even if it's only 3 things. Or text one person in your life who's a fighter and ask if you can grab coffee. Just take one small action that proves to your brain, I'm not a victim anymore, I'm a fighter. Because the power to change your story, it's already in your hands. You just have to choose to use it. Now, if this video helped you, I need to tell you something important, because here's what I realized after I changed my mindset. I was still failing my classes. Not because I had a victim mindset anymore, but because I was studying completely wrong. I had the fighter mentality, I was putting in the hours, but I was using methods that don't actually work. So next week, I'm making a video called How to Actually Study Before It's Too Late. And it's going to destroy everything you think you know about studying, including why highlighting and rereading, the 2 most popular study methods, are scientifically proven to be almost completely useless, and what actually works instead. Because you can have the best mindset in the world, but if you're studying wrong, you're still gonna fail. And most students don't realize this until it's too late. So make sure you catch that one. It might be the difference between passing and failing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, fighter, not victim. Let's go.